Hey there, good afternoon, everybody. This is Erwin Buckenhout coming from Brussels this afternoon. Welcome all to the Expertdoc SmartFlows 4.2 and Expertdoc Portal 3.23 launch webinar. I'm happy a lot of you could join us today. There's a very crowded room today, so I'm very happy with that. A lot of attendees for this session. Can you just, if there would be any problems with the sound, could you just confirm that I'm coming through loud and clear for all of you, and that there is no problem with the sound? There is a chat window on the right-hand side of the screen of the GoToWebinar interface where you can chat. So if somebody wants to tell you that everything is okay, then we're fine. So if somebody could just loud and clear. Okay, thank you for that feedback. Okie dokie. Right. So that's good. So let's have a look. So today's session is all about. We're mainly focusing on Expertdoc SmartFlows 4.2, which is a release that we're launching, or that we have launched a couple of days ago, which is now available on our cloud servers and is also available for you if you're running the Expertdoc software on your own premises or in a private cloud environment. A lot of new things, but before I go there, some session housekeeping. There's a lot of you, as I mentioned, so what we're basically going to do today is keep everybody on mute, and with everybody on mute, we will, that does not necessarily mean that there can be no interaction whatsoever. What I'm going to do during the session is launch a couple of polls with a couple of questions for you to answer. So there's some interaction at least, and obviously there's also the chat window where you can type up questions, and I will come back to the questions, to answering the questions at the end of the session during a Q&A part that we have there. Okay, so I want to just stay into the flow of the presentation and come back to the questions at the end of the session. If there's not enough time to answer all of the questions at the end, then I suggest we come back to the questions that are relevant for everybody when we send out the recordings. We are recording the session, so if you think that there are colleagues or friends that might be interested, feel free to forward the recording links that will be sent to you after this session. Okie-doke. So thanks for joining. What's on the agenda today? Let's have a look. Well, first of all, me telling you something about our company. We're Expertdoc Technologies Inc., a Canadian company. With a branch both in Canada and partly also in the US, and a branch in Europe and Belgium. We're all about document flow automation. So basically what we do is we try to automate the generation, delivery, and processing of documents in all sorts of ways. There's about 40 of us, nicely split between the two regions. In North America, we got about 20 experts, same number, more or less, give or take a few, here in Europe, all Belgian based. And then we have a nice ecosystem around our community, around our products, of about 100 partners who are distributing and adding value on top of the software that we deliver. Okay, so and it's all the aim of the game is to produce and deliver better documents faster. That's what it's all about. Okay, so this session we are focusing on the 4.2 release of Expertdoc SmartFlows. So I'm going to first of all talk you through what's new, and then I'm going to walk you through what's new as well during a live demo. I hate to be stuck in PowerPoint slides, so I'm going to jump out of the presentation soon enough to show you a couple of live things. It's all new things, so I hope everything works as planned. But I guess that won't be too much of a problem. And then next up, we're also going to talk about the future a little bit, what's coming up with the next release after this one. We have a patch release coming up in June with a couple of minor improvements, and I'm going to talk you through those minor improvements as well. And then we're going to stop with some resources, some guidance, and some pointers to resources both for partners and basically for everyone. And then I'll hope that we still have room for a Q&A. So that's what we want to do. So basically, the main part is telling you and showing you what's new in the 4.2 release of SmartFlows. And as a matter of fact, the most important thing is in this release is connectivity. So new connectors to other input and output systems. And I think the main one, and I'm going to spend a lot of time in the demo also today in that one, is Sugar. And Sugar is a CRM system, customer relationship management system. It's not the largest of CRM systems. I think the most important ones are the one from Salesforce.com, Dynamics 365 from Microsoft, and Oracle, and there's a few others that are really focused on the enterprise. If you look at medium-sized organization, you get things like HubSpot and Nimble and Zoho and things like that. And I think that Sugar, the CRM system for Sugar, from SugarCRM, so Sugar is the name of the thing, is way up there with HubSpot, Nimble, and Zoho, and those kinds of things. So it's mainly focused on the medium-sized businesses. There's a lot of them using Sugar, but there's also a fair amount of enterprises and even big names like, for instance, Audi and Sennheiser and IBM and T-Mobile, who are using Sugar as their CRM system, their customer engagement or customer relationship management system. So we used to have a connector with Experlogix for Sugar, and right now I'm very happy to announce that with 4.2 release of SmartFlows, we also have a Xpertdoc SmartFlows connector for that CRM system. Okay. OneSpan Sign and AdobeSign are added to the list of connectors for e-signing. So if you run a flow in which a document is produced and then sent out for signing, you can do so using DocuSign, because we already supported that one. You can also use Certify, which is a good alternative. And then now you can also use OneSpan Sign. OneSpan Sign used to be called eSign Life. By the way, it's recently changed its name to OneSpan Sign. So if you're wondering, OneSpan Sign, never heard of it, well, it's eSign Life, in fact. And AdobeSign. AdobeSign used to be called EchoSign, and now it's AdobeSign, and it's also a system that we support right now. I think Microsoft recently announced, well, recently, a couple of, maybe it's already half a year ago, but they announced that AdobeSign would be their e-signature partner of preference. So obviously that's that kind of pushed the decision to quickly have an integration with AdobeSign as well. So I'm going to show you both today. I'm going to and also spend a lot of time in Sugar, as I mentioned, and we have some scenarios set up here where we are signing with OneSpan Sign, and some scenarios where we are signing with AdobeSign. I hope to show you all of that in the course of the next, well, a little bit less than an hour. All right. Also, existing connectors have received a couple of enhancements. Our most important connector, I guess, is the one to Microsoft Dynamics 365. The good news there is that we support the April 2019 release now in full force, and something that has been pretty much awaited, I guess, is the command bar buttons for the unified interface apps. We're struggling a little bit with that because, as a matter of fact, what we use in Expertdoc SmartFlows for buttons, for command bar buttons, are so-called split buttons, and they're custom split buttons. And the way in which we implemented our split buttons was not yet supported by unified interface apps. So we poked Microsoft about it quite a few times, and unfortunately Microsoft did not really poke us back, so we decided at a certain point to redo the implementation of our buttons. And right now we basically have two buttons that you can choose from for unified interface apps, and that's either a simple button that will open up the flow execution panel to execute your flow and select a flow from that panel. So that's one option. And another button you can implement there is a drop-down button, which shows you your pinned flows, so your most popular flows for the specific entity that you're on. Okay, so I'm going to show you how you can select which button you're going to use in your unified interface apps. By the way, you can also put both in there if you want to. And then I hope to also show you how that works from an end user's perspective. Flow execution priority settings. This is interesting as well. This also has to do with one of the platform enhancements that we introduced now with the 4.2 release, which is all about improved queue orchestration. Basically, up till this point, we didn't make any difference in terms of priority between a flow execution request that was coming from a user through the user interface, or a flow execution that was coming from a workflow. Okay, so you can start a flow execution from a Microsoft Dynamics workflow, as you probably know. And basically they had the same priority level coming into to our servers. Right now, that's the setting. So you can define whether workflow triggered flow executions should have lower priority. Typically, you would have those with a lower priority, so that whoever is setting off a flow on demand will get priority over processes that are actually running in the back. And then very important one, enhanced connectivity for Microsoft Dynamics 365 and CRM on-prem. And that's another very big thing on the Microsoft Dynamics 365 side. We were really struggling there. It's been a challenge, very much of a challenge up till this point, to connect with Dynamics 365 and also Dynamics CRM on premises. Because in our implementation with, in our connectors for Dynamics on premises, we definitely wanted to stay away from any sort of deprecated patterns, things that Microsoft has told us not to do. So we really wanted to have a secure and a good way of integrating or connecting to Dynamics on premises. So yeah, that was really a challenge, because all of the patterns that Microsoft offered as there to replace the deprecated ones had their issues. Okay, so we were kind of struggling with all of the different patterns that we saw there. But the good thing now is that we found solutions for everything. So that means that we can now easily integrate with Dynamics on premises. Doesn't really matter how you have set up your connectivity there to Dynamics, whether it's through Windows AD, whether it's through ADFS 3.0 or through ADFS 4.0, it all works. So the good thing is that we have successful implementations now on all those patterns, and we don't see any issues anymore there. So that's good. And we do apologize to the on-prem customers who have and we want to thank you definitely also for your patience while we were getting there. Okay. Platform enhancements, we have a new licensing module. I think that's interesting as well. New licensing in terms of, so if you look at SmartFlows, the way it's licensed, it's both user-based and document volume-based. So we're basically counting documents. We're really enforcing that document count at this point, that document volume allowance, and that the user subscription allowance as well. So we're really counting users and counting documents at this point. And well, we're basically, if you hit your limits, then basically it's you have to upgrade or purchase extra licenses, subscriptions, or volume allowance. Okay, so the module or the licensing module there has changed a little bit. I'll show you what it looks like. I'll show you how you can make sure that you get a new license in time, and how you can implement it in your environment, in your project console. And then improved queue orchestration, that's a very important one, and flow execution stage timeout settings, a little bit technical there. Improved queue orchestration, that's specifically for multi-tenant environments. There are a couple of customers in the room and also partners in the room who have their own multi-tenant environments set up, and obviously we run multi-tenant environments in our cloud as well. Basically, what we do there, we have improved the queue orchestration in the sense that the queue is never fully filled up anymore. So what used to happen in the past, I think in our cloud, is that we could go up to, I think, 500 simultaneous document generation requests. Using a thread in the queue. I think that was the total limitation there. So I think that, or not using a thread but being queued, and I think that limitation has now been lifted. So we can go endlessly. There's no more upper limit in how many requests we can queue. So that's good news. And also the pattern in which the items are added to queues is now using a round robin pattern. So that means that if tenant A is requesting like 500 documents, tenant B does not have to wait until tenant A has executed all 500 documents before the documents of tenant B are being generated. So it's round robin, so that means that document 1 of tenant A will be generated, then we will go to tenant B, generate the first document of tenant B, then we go back to tenant A, and so on and so forth. So the waiting times will be distributed among the different tenants, so it's a fair orchestration, fair distribution of the waiting times. No worries, there's no waiting longer than a couple of seconds, you'll see. Something else there in terms of maximizing the use that you can make of your server resources is the flow execution stage timeout settings. That means that if a flow execution is basically stuck some way somehow, then you can set a timeout at which it will free up the resources that it's actually using. Okay, so a time execution or flow execution stage is in fact the time between, or is the the window that falls between the start of a flow and the moment in which a flow is finished, or the start of a flow and the moment in which a flow goes into a pending state. It's waiting for user input, for instance, or waiting for an external event to happen, somebody signing a document, for instance. So the time that the flow is actually actively running, that's flow execution states time, in fact, and you can set a timeout for that. So if it's stuck some way somehow, then these resources can be freed up again for other flow executions. And we also redesigned our reporting a little bit based on feedback that we got from our customers. So quite a few enhancements. I think this is one of the largest releases that we have ever launched in terms of new functionality that has been added. So I'm very happy, very excited about this one, and I definitely hope you're going to like it. Okay, so demo time. What I'm going to show you today is starting from Sugar. I'd like to generate a quotation in a couple of clicks, and we'll see that you can, well, answer some questions when you send out when you run the flow. So a little bit of a form that will be presented to the end user, and we'll send it out to Xpertdoc content manager and Xpertdoc for Office. This is something I just forgot to mention on the earlier slide. Very important thing now, we can actually generate documents and then open them up for review. So you can open them up when you have generated them. You can actually add it to the document you have generated and then continue the flow afterwards. So it's good news in terms of all sorts of reviewing, editing scenarios where you can open up a generated document, edit it, and then continue the flow where you left it off. So that's one I'm gonna demonstrate from Sugar, starting from a quotation record in Sugar, generating a document from there with some user input, even bringing in some external data that's living somewhere else in Sugar. We're using all the data into a document, then sending it off to Content Manager for editing. and then after it's been edited, we're going to send it through to OneSpan Sign to have it signed by an intended recipient. And then when the document is signed, we're going to pick it up again and save it against the original record in Sugar. That's the demo scenario I'm going to run from Sugar. And then something I want to show you from Dynamics 365 are the new Xpertdoc controls in the unified interface apps. And I'll show you the e-signing procedure for Adobe Sign in Dynamics. Okay. And then I'll stop for a little overview of what's changed in terms of licensing and reporting. Okay, so let's get out of the presentation and into demo mode here. Okie dokie, so this is Sugar. This is what it looks like. For people who are used to Microsoft Dynamics, it's pretty similar, right? It's a quotation record, so you have your line items in here, and they're in Sugar. You can nicely group them. You can have product line items. You can have notes that you can add to your product line items. You can move them around if you want to. So basically that's it. You get related items, subpanels as they're called in the Sugar environment, with which well, calls and meetings and other actions that are related to this quotation. In this case, we have emails and we have documents, obviously, that are related to this quotation. So how do you run a SmartFlow from here? Well, you basically use the edit button over here and you'll have the Expertdoc Smart Flows control in here. If you click this one, this will open the flow execution panel. The good thing is that you also have this Expertdoc Quick Run thing. If you click that, it will open up a drop down with the pinned flows, so the flows that you regard as the most popular ones, and you can select them from here and they will run straight away from here. So there's a simple quote over here, and we have a review and sign quotation or review and sign flow that we can start from here as well. So I'm going to click that one and see what happens. So we're opening up the panel and it's going to retrieve the quote information, and we're gonna go straight into Xpertdoc Content Manager. This one doesn't seem to have any user input. I'm sorry for that. I'll run another one with user input in just a second. But here you go. So we have generated a small quote and we have stored it in Xpertdoc Content Manager. What we can do actually from this point is click the file that we have created to actually open it up in Content Manager. So here we go. We have a docx file. We can open it up. There you go. This is the generated document. I can run you through it. Let's maybe do that. So it starts up with an opening page, with a cover page, as you can see, with a mapping of the potential customer and the valid until date over here. A cover letter. Addressed to Miss Spencer, as you can see, and it's going out from a certain guy called Jim Brennan, which we are in this point as the active user from Sugar. That's right here, and then we have the actual price quotation. So we see that the same things that we saw in the Sugar user interface. We see the different groups of products, and we see the products listed in the same order with the notes connected to the right products over here. Okay, so that's how it works. We got our grand totals and everything. That's all calculated. We can take those things right from Sugar. We can do our own calculations in the templates. Well, it's quite a lot that we can do over here. The good news now is that you can actually edit the document as you go. So we can open up Xpertdoc for Office. Xpertdoc for Office is, in fact, the plugin that we have, or the add-in that we have for Microsoft Office. It works with Microsoft Word, it works with Excel, it works with PowerPoint, where you can go and interact with all the content that is stored in Xpertdoc Content Manager. So what we actually did, which is generate a document, is we send it off to Xpertdoc Content Manager, and now with the Xpertdoc for Office add-in, we can interact with Xpertdoc Content Manager. So as you can see, we are going to the upload and history part of it, and right now we can see that we're on version 1. of this document because it's just generated for us a minute ago. So there we go, we're now on this version, and I can edit it if I want to. So if I go, for instance, over here in my general terms and conditions, and I would make some changes, I'll just type some changes I made to the document. Let me just put that in red so it kind of stands out. There you go. Let me scroll through. Okie dokie. That all looks okay. So what I can do at this point is I can click this button and I can select sync and resume the smart flow. If I do that, then basically my smart flow that I had that is actually in a pending state will continue. It says the smart flow has been resumed successfully. So let's have a look at that smart flow. Let's have a look over here. It's still showing that waiting state, but as you can see, it's updated right now and it's taken the next step. And the next step in the process is to send this document that we have edited and reviewed right now. We're going to send that to OneSpan for signing. Okay. So the status that we have right now is that our quotation for Waverly Trading House is sent through OneSpan Sign to the person who needs to actually sign it. So let's have a look at who that person was. I think it was our good friend Shirley Spencer. Here we are. So let me refresh the inbox of Shirley Spencer, and from eSign Life. So that's OneSpan Sign's old name. They still use that in their platform. From eSign Live, I have received this email right now. So let's have a look. We can hi Shirley Spencer. Sugar Limo has added you as a signer, and so on. We can go to the documents. By the way, you can edit what's in that email. Of course, you can personalize that. And this is then the OneSpan Sign signing experience that we go to. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's accept the fact that we're going to use OneSpan Sign as a signing platform over here. We're going to see the same document right here in the sandbox that we're using for OneSpan Sign. So we can take it all the way to the place where we need to sign it. We can click to sign, and then our good friend Shirley can place her nice looking signature over here, say okay to it. And then the process is completed. So let's go back into our smart flow that we have run and refresh it once again. And there you go. So we started in Sugar, and we can open it up again in Sugar right now. And it's actually stored as a document in Sugar. So we can go to that file right now, download the actual file over here. There you go. And you'll see the document with the changes in there, some changes I made to the document, and the actual signature here by Shirley Spencer. Okay, and it's saved in Sugar against the quotation record that if I go back to quotes and go to my quotation record that I started the process from, it's actually stored in the document section over here. So this is, as you can see from the timestamp, this is 428. This is the document that we just produced. So that's basically full circle. So you start from a quotation record within Sugar, could be any other record from any other module in Sugar. You start from there, you generate a document, the document gets delivered for review through the Xpertdoc Content Manager store, and then basically with the Xpertdoc for Office plugin, you can resume the flow if you want to, and then in a next step in the flow, we have delivered it for signing through OneSpan Sign. Okay, so that's a Sugar scenario that goes through those different steps. We picked up the signed document in the end and took it all the way back to the record that we originally started the signing process or the quotation process from. There's other scenarios, obviously, that we can have a look at. I'll just just to give you an idea of the other things that are possible, I'll just select a few accounts because you can start from record views, but you can also start from list views in Sugar. So I have a list of accounts over here, and what I can do now is on the list view, I can do the same thing. I can click Xpertdoc Smart Flow to open my my flow execution panel, or I can click Xpertdoc Quick Run to have a look at what we have available over here, and we have an opportunity in case report over here that we can generate. Okay, so let's do that one. It's going to generate a couple of documents right now. It's because I started from a list in which I selected 5 or 6 different accounts, and for all of these accounts, we are now generating the same document, which is in this case an opportunity and case report. Now, the opportunity and case report is a report. It's a management report, and we are not only producing the document, we're also password protecting it. Okay, so I'm going to open up one of these things like the XYZ Funding Inc. One. So if I open it up, it's going to ask me for a password before I can actually see the content. So these things like password protecting and storing it back against certain records or delivering through OneSpan Sign or AdobeSign or DocuSign and so on and so forth, putting things in SharePoint, printing and so on and so forth. These are all steps that we can easily add to our flows. So this is the document that we have produced for this particular account. XYZ Funding. As you can see, this is a company with a very low rating, and we have some nice looking charts over here. These are not charts that we copy as pictures from Sugar or whatever. We actually produce these charts ourselves. Using the tools that Microsoft Word has for charting. Okay, so that's basically how that all works. It's very easy to do such a template. It looks a little bit complex, but it is in fact very easy to do. Let's have a look at another one. I'll just open up another one here just to give you an idea. So same thing, same password. There you go. And there you are. So it looks like we won something here. We closed a couple of deals, or at least one, and there you go. So in terms of creating your reports, if you think of use cases for document generation processes from Sugar, you could think of all sorts of things. Coding is typically something that a lot of customers are doing, but reporting, as you can see over here, including charts and everything, is another very typical example, providing management information, as you can see. Marketing purposes, also very popular. Think of scenarios like where you want to send some correspondence, a letter, maybe just an email to customers. You can perfectly do that using SmartFlows. Other things, for instance, what you see very often as well are service scenarios where you have people on the road, mobile workers who are actually doing interventions and stuff like that, or mobile sales force who are on the road and want to generate a document over there, report an intervention report, for instance, and the customer needs to sign off on that report and so on and so forth. So those scenarios are typically scenarios where you need a document to officialize something, and then that document should be signed, should be delivered, should be stored in the right place. Other scenarios typically include all sorts of policies, all sorts of agreements, typically transactional things where people need to sign and agree on certain things. All right, so those are a couple of things from Sugar. I think I covered quite a lot with these very simple examples. Let me just run one more example from Sugar where we are generating a quote again. Do I still have my Sugar open? Oh, it looks like I closed my Sugar here. So hang on, let me just go back into my Sugar environment. Oh, this is not what I was expecting here. Hang on. Is this the one? This seems to be the one. Okie dokie. Let me just run that quote again. So I think I have this other scenario over here where we are actually asking for input during the process as well. So I'm just going to see here if I go into the flow execution panel and I select, so this is the other way of doing it, where you select the other button and then it takes you to the flow execution panel where you can choose which flow you're going to run. So if we're running this one, we actually get a couple of questions first where we are asked to, well, choose an alternative first paragraph for the cover letter, whether or not we want to include product specification sheets and so on and so forth. Choose the version of the terms and conditions section in the document. So we can have some user interaction on these documents where the user is basically making a couple of choices, showing a couple of preferences or passing on a couple of preferences here for the document to be produced. By the way, Xpertdoc also has this product called Smart Forms, which allows for much more complex forms with interdependent questions, well, where basically the visibility of question 2 depends on the answer that you give on question A, where you can build entire decision trees and so on and so forth. Very interactive experiences where you can upload data that's coming from all sorts of sources and so on and so forth. All these things are available through smart flows as well. So you can actually start the execution of a smart form, so a much more complex form than the one you see over here, from within a smart flow. And that works for scenarios where you start from Microsoft Dynamics. It also works for scenarios where you start from Sugar. Okay, so I'm gonna stop showing things from Sugar over here. I'm gonna switch over to Microsoft Dynamics for a couple of demos over there. What I want to show you up here is the user interface, the unified interface apps. So we're on the Sales Hub right now, which is a unified interface app, and you basically have the option to choose one of 2 buttons here, and you can put them in both, and that's what I did over here for smart flows. So the thing that most of you have been missing is this one, where you can actually have a drop down of your available flows in the unified interface app. So it's available right now, and we can run it. So we have a quote with a signature up here. If I run this one, this is actually going to run a quote with an AdobeSign integration. So let's do that. So this one has questions to answer, so I can change the first paragraph and type something like, I am happy to send you this quotation, something like that. Include product descriptions, yes or no, go for medium version, for instance, of the terms and conditions, and then hit continue. So we're generating the document and we're sending it off to AdobeSign. So that's what's happening right now. So let's wait a second for that to happen. So there you go. We generated a document and we send it to René Valdez. So let's have a look if we have access to the inbox of René Valdez. We actually do. So here's René. So let me refresh that mailbox. And then from me, I have received this email coming from AdobeSign, where AdobeSign is telling us that this character has sent us a quotation. Okay, and we can open it up, clicking over here. And this will take us to through the AdobeSign signing experience. We are using a sandbox environment of AdobeSign for this demo, and that's why you see that pretty ugly red and white thing right on the middle of each page. But this is the quotation that we have generated. It looks very much like the one that we did from Sugar, with a little bit of a different layout, but we can take it to the place where we need to sign. It's and there you go. Let's hit start and let's hit next, and then click here to sign, and then we can actually type our name, and it's René Valdez in this case. And there you go. We can apply, and that kind of concludes the. Let's have a look. Click to sign, and you have successfully signed the agreement. So there you go. And then you can download a copy and so on and so forth. So basically that's the integration with AdobeSign, where we do the same thing. We generate a document from within Microsoft Dynamics. We send it off to AdobeSign. Obviously, we could have that intermediate step where we first review the document before we send it off to the customer for signing. I didn't include it in this particular flow. But that's obviously possible with AdobeSign as well. So keep in mind, we still support DocuSign as well. We still support Certify as well. And if you look at things from the portal, the Expertdoc portal site, we are still supporting SureSign as well. So all of these items are all supported. Okay. Right, so what else did I have in store for you? Let's maybe go to Dynamics for a second. Hang on. This is where I need to be, right? If you go to Dynamics and you go to the actual SmartFlows app, there's a couple of settings that I want to walk you through. So if you do that, you have this massive button that you can push to open the project console, where you can, we're going to go there in just a second. But before we do that, I'm going to take you to configuration over here. And this is actually where you do your configurations for your specific SmartFlows integration for this Microsoft tenant, okay, this Dynamics tenant. So there's this options panel that I want to show you, where you can basically set a few options. So the flyout behavior, for instance. So if you have that drop down where you can select the flow that you want to run, you can choose whether at that point you want to skip user input if somebody clicks that, or you want to prompt the user for input if you have questions or user editable things or smart form that's included there, whether you want to skip that or show it when the flow is started from the flow execution from the drop down. Browser tab behavior. Obviously, you see I have a lot of browser tabs open. If you want to avoid that, you can try and reuse open tabs, or you can open a new tab for every flow execution. And here's the setting for the buttons for unified interface apps. So you can choose whether you want to just put a simple button on there to open the flow execution panel, or list your pinned flows through the drop-down button as you saw. Or you can do both, and that's what I did over here. And then you end up with two buttons on your on your unified interface apps. Workflow priority then. So this is what I referred to earlier on, where we can now set a priority level for flow executions. And flow executions that are started from a Microsoft Dynamics workflow can have a lower or a higher priority. It's very unlikely that you want to set this higher, but can have a lower priority as opposed to smart flow executions that are started from user interaction. By the way, if you're not using smart flows in combination with Dynamics or Sugar, but you're starting, or you call smart flows directly through the smart flows API, you can set a priority level for each of your individual flow executions. So you can actually pass that as a header message to the call. All right, so that's what I wanted to show you over here. So let me just take you to the project console for a second and show you a couple of things that have changed there. If we go to the control panel, what you're going to see now is licensing. The licensing has changed a little bit. So what you can see now is that you have a clear indication of how many users you're allowed to assign a subscription to, how many documents you're allowed to generate. So we generated 53 documents in this one, and we have an allowance of 12,000 per year. And you can purchase additional documents, and if you do that, then basically you're going to see a number that is higher than 0 appear over here. Our software comes in editions. There's a business standard edition, there's a business premium edition, there's the business ultimate edition, and then there's an enterprise edition. So which edition you purchased shows up over here, and then the flavor that you have purchased shows over here. So this is one for Microsoft Dynamics 365. If you purchase Xpertdoc for Sugar, it's gonna state that over here instead. You see the validity, so the expiry of your license, and here you see the enabled plugins. So this one is enabled for Dynamics and is enabled for AdobeSign. That's why we saw those things appear. Okay, so you cannot combine multiple e-signature providers at this point. You cannot combine multiple input connectors or CRM connectors at this point as well. So that's maybe something that we're going to change in the future, but at this point, it's one eSign connector, it's one CRM connector. If ever your license should expire, or you're close to expiration of a license, or you have purchased additional users, for instance, and we're giving you a new license, then basically the one thing that we need from you is your project ID, and that helps us to create a new license. We can send it to you, and you can just drop the new license file over here, activate it, and that's it. Okay, we can also do that fully automated through an API key if you create an API key for an admin user, but that's a little bit beyond the scope of this session. But so, okay, that's the new control panel. What else is there? Basically on all of the list views, and I think also on the home screen, if I take it to the home screen, you're gonna see a small summary over here of the number of documents that have been produced against the total volume allowance, and the number of users that have been assigned against the total allowance, as you can see over here. Something that's changed a little bit as well is reporting. So let me take you there. The reporting panel, so this one is showing a lot of errors, as you can see, has a vertical navigation bar right now as well, so we can actually go over here and then we can see a lot more things on one simple screen. Yeah. So this is interesting because on this dashboard, this list, which is very heavily used to see what's going on, was limited to, I think, only 10 flow runs that you would see over here. Well, over here you can basically see as many as you want to. I think you can go to pages of 100 items. So that's easy scrolling. And then for partners especially, this is an interesting one. That's import report, where you can actually ask your customer to export a flow execution report, and then you can simply drop that export file over here, and then you can see the entire flow execution report over here, even, well, notwithstanding the fact that you're in a different project, so that doesn't even matter. So what you're going to see then is this. So if we look at that, if we look at this, you're going to see the flow run report with all of the details of the different steps that you have over here. Okay. So this is how that will work. So this is the feedback that you would get if you import such a file, even though it's coming from another project. So if you want to troubleshoot something, if you have multiple implementations, you can just ask your customer, well, can you export the flow execution report, send it over to me, and I'll have a look at it. By the way, how do you export such a report? That's a good question. I think this is via the show output. Oh no, it's not via the show output. I'll have to double check how you can do that export exactly. Anyways, so this is more or less what I wanted to show you during the live demo section of this presentation. So I'm going to take it back to the PowerPoint for a couple more slides, and then I'm going to open it up for questions real quickly. So what's coming up? We have our product roadmap that contains a patch release in June, small release, where we're going to do a couple of things, add a couple of things to what we are offering right now, especially around Dynamics 365. important thing there is that we're going to be able then to define a project not against a full CRM org, but against a business unit. Okay, so that means that if you have multiple business units in one organization, you can set up different projects with different templates for each of your business units. Could be an interesting option, especially larger customers that have branches in different countries and different countries using different templates and so on and so forth, but are using one big CRM org with business units can now define their project on the business unit level rather than the organization level. Much anticipated feature that's coming in June. And another good one, I think, is that you could actually start a Dynamics workflow as part of a document flow execution. So that's pretty cute, I guess. So that that means that, for instance, you can do an update record after you have generated a document, after you have executed the flow, and you can change statuses and so on and so forth using that feature. In the project console, we're going to improve the experience on list views. Right now, we have a little issue there in terms of the number of items you show per list, if you or per page, and the sorting and the filtering that you do. If you navigate away from a page, you come back, it kind of forgets the filterings that you have that you had set there last time around. So basically, we can what we're going to do now is actually keep those preferences, and they're going to show again. Okay, and then warnings when you're approaching the license limits. That's an interesting one as well. So if you're getting close to your document allowance, or if you run out of licenses to hand out to users, or if your expiry date is coming up, then basically we can start sending you warnings. That's an improvement that we're going to make in the June 2019 release. Okay. Some pointers to resources if you want to follow up on this session. Very important, we have for partners, we have a partner portal on the Expertdoc.com site. We have made a couple of changes to the Expertdoc.com site, by the way, very recently. I think it was updated last week. I think it's looking pretty neat right now. Some great efforts there from our marketing department. Basically, what you have there is for partners is the partner portal, so definitely worth having a look at. And then also very important for partners is the internal use rights and demo subscriptions that you're entitled to. You can redeem those. Or you can claim those licenses through the link that you see there. Okay, so if you haven't claimed your licenses yet, or you don't have a demo subscription at this point, make sure to go there and apply for one. And then some pointers that are very relevant, I guess, for everyone is the knowledge base. We have a very broad knowledge base with a lot of resources on how things work, articles on how things work, how you set up things, how you have to set up your connector for Sugar, for Dynamics, how you can build your flows, and so on and so forth. And some training resources as well. We have a go-to-stage environment where you can easily watch a couple of videos, but if you want some training that is very specific to your business case or your use case, then we have commercial offerings around that as well. We do sessions even on your own premises all the time. So that's we have a training team that is ready to answer all your training needs. So that's important to have a look at that. Also, new thing here for the SmartFlows customers that are on premises. If we have updates, we're going to distribute them through the My Xpertdoc account. So I think most of you have received last week have received an email from us with a My Xpertdoc account. If you haven't received that and you think you should have because you're an on-prem or private cloud customer of SmartFlows, please let us know, and we'll set up my Xpertdoc account for you. Whenever we have a new update, like what we're going to do in June, we're going to post it there, and you'll be able to download it from that gated environment. If you want to read more about what we have been talking about today, then you can find the release preview guide for SmartFlows 4.2. It's available through our website. And the last point I wanted to make is that we are always very, very happy to hear stories from partners and from customers who are actually using our products. So if you have a great story to share, if you want to show us, want to tell us how exactly you are using SmartFlows, or how you are using Portal in combination with SmartFlows, or how you're using Smart Forums, what kind of cool stuff you're doing with all those products, please let us know. We're always in for a good story, and it's for us from the product team. It's very inspirational. We have a very good ideation process in our company. We're actually using a lot of customer stories to improve our products, to make the things that you inspire us with, to make those available in the product, so that everybody can do the same things in the easiest possible way. Okay, so that's what we want from you. Share your stories. We're reaching out to you guys on a regular basis, so whenever you have the chance to see us, to talk to us, share your story. Okay, I think we have, let's have a look at the time. So we have a couple of minutes left, so maybe we can do some Q&A. By the way, I totally forgot about the polls, but apart from that, I think I covered most of the things. Let's have a look at the questions that we had here. Okay, so could data be pulled? So this is a question around Sugar. Could data be pulled from Sugar to populate documents, and instead of saving back into Sugar documents, use API to save documents to another document store, like for instance Box? Yeah, that's perfectly. That's a very good question. Thanks for that. Yeah, absolutely. That's possible. So I actually haven't showed you, but another improvement here is that we have an update now of our to our API as well. So basically, every flow execution, everything that you saw me do through the user interface during the demo is perfectly possible through the API as well. We have a REST-based API which you can have a look at through Swagger, and then you can see all of the different steps that you have there, all the different services that you can call to actually retrieve, or to actually run your flows, and also retrieve the output of your flows. So through the API, you can perfectly pick up a generated document and then push it into Box. That's definitely an option. Somebody is helping me that this looked like a download button on the report. Yeah, there must be some way there. I must have missed it. Probably referring back to the point where I lost the way where the way to download a report to send it to somebody else where they could upload it to have a look at the flow run report. So thanks for that. Yeah, the button is definitely there. I just didn't see it. Another question here: what's the best way to handle sandboxing and development processes? Is a very good question indeed. So SmartFlows does support what we call OTAP. So where you have or DTAP, where you have a development and a test and acceptance environment, and then a production environment, and so on and so forth. So you have sandboxes, and then you have the real thing, the production environment. It does support all of that. As a matter of fact, it comes with an import export feature. Let me just take you there. from the control panel. What you have over here is import and export. So from a flow, for instance, if you have a look at the flow that we use, the quote with signature flow, you can actually export that flow, and there you go. It will take all the dependencies and so on and so forth, and you can export it. So you just run export, then it's going to create a zip file. And in your other environments where you want to import it, I'm just going to import it now in the same environment, or I'll start the process at least. You actually go to the control panel. So say that we just did this in the development environment. And then in your production environment, you can go over here and import, and just basically drag that zip into here, click next, and then we're going to import the entire flow, the quote with signature, with all of the data sets and so on and so forth. So click next, and then this is now doing analysis. So it's going to check whether it has everything it needs. Yeah. I'm going to look at the connectors. Well, we have an AdobeSign connector, that's good. We have a Dynamics connector, that's all good. So we have everything we need, and we can import the item into our environment. So if I would click import, it would import it again in this environment. So that's basically how you do it. The good thing is that once again, like I mentioned just a second ago, everything that I do through the interface can be done through the API as well. So if you have an automated script where you at a certain point say, well, okay, I'm totally happy with what I did in terms of or what I created now in terms of my solution, my CRM solution, and documents are part of that solution, and document flows are part of that solution, you can actually say, okay, now I'm going to take the entire thing and move it to production. If that's an automated script that you run, then you can actually include our stuff, the SmartFlow stuff, in that automated script using the API to do export and import. Okay, making sense? I hope this is making sense to you guys. Let's have a look. More questions? Okay. Okie dokie. So we have more questions on the same topic. Yeah, typically, so the question is, do we need multiple SmartFlows environments? Well, yeah, typically what you have there is multiple projects, but no worries in terms of licensing. As from, I think the business premium version onwards, the good news is that that you're licensed to have multiple environments. I think in the business premium, it's 2 environments that you're entitled to. I think in the business ultimate, I think you have 5 environments, and I think if we move up to enterprise, the number is higher, or is not even limited. I'm not 100% sure there what the commercial model is. Okay, so good questions. Let's have a look. I think those are the questions I have at this point. So thank you very much for those questions. Thanks for being with us today. I hope this was an interesting session for you guys and a good overview. And it looks like we're a little bit over time, but it's still kind of okay, I guess. Okay, so thanks a lot for being here with me today, for joining in, and hope to see you again very soon. Bye-bye.